Yes, approved. Thank you. That gives me an opportunity to try again. Public Act 25 of 2026 in Section 32. That's where this year's funding is coming from. First and foremost, we want to acknowledge the unprecedented funding that we received. $135 million has been allocated in an investment to expand access and reduce family costs for out of school time. And that's just really exciting. It's exciting for the sector. It's exciting for our field as we bring more attention throughout the state to the difference that out of school time and after school opportunities make for youth across the state of Michigan. This grant is meant to serve folks in K through 12. That is any or all grades eligible. You can choose who you serve as long as it's not preschool, right? So this is not early childhood funding. It particularly is folks who are school age currently, right? Awards will run from about 14.4 thousand all the way to $273.5 thousand, right? So there's a great range, great opportunity here. Award ranges per site based on students, days, and hours. And this is an important place for us to note and provide encouragement, particularly for our single site or rural organizations and applicants, that your size does not decide your funding, right? So the size alone of your organization is not going to be a deciding factor on how much funding you receive. It really is based on, as we said, the students, the days, and the hours, how many folks you're serving, right? Here, we, as the Michigan After School Partnership, are serving as an intermediary. So we work between MyLeap and out of school time organizations, grassroots organizations across the state to ensure that you all have the ongoing supports and resources, tools that you need throughout this process. With that being said, it is important to note that because we are distinct, separate from MyLeap, there are a few things that just do not fall under our purview, right? So we do not get to make the funding decisions. We do not get to write the RFP. While we do work to inform that process and ensure that it is well informed also by the communities that we are connected to, we are separate from those processes. So as we are going through, it really is our hope to provide as much context as possible, to offer as much detail as we can into the nuance so that you all have the resources and the tools, but just wanting to create some clarity in the role that we serve with this funding. All right, so really quick overview of what we'll cover today. Here's what you can expect from our session. First and foremost, we'll go over some eligibility points. So first and foremost, before you get too far into the process, understanding whether or not you are eligible for 32N funding. Then we'll get into the path to submit. So what do the actual processes look like in order to ensure that your grant is received through the GEMS portal that they use for this grant? We'll break down how scoring works. So we'll talk through the grant review process, what the reviewers are responsible for, and kind of what they're looking at as they review applications for who gets funded. And then we'll talk about how to win in each section, right? So we'll really get into the rubric that is that is in that RFP so that you can make sure that at every column you are hitting that 3-point standard, okay? And then before we close, we'll go over some point killers to avoid, so small mistakes that are easily avoidable. And then lastly, supporting you to submit with confidence. I see in the chat we'll receive a copy of this meeting. We are recording right now, and that will be posted on our website, but we also can make these slides available once we finish. Ready for that next slide? Okay, so first and foremost, should you apply? So there are kind of two gateways or two gates that you have to go through in order to ensure eligibility. The first one is what type of organization you are, right? So first and foremost, you have to be a nonprofit, community-based community organization, nonprofit, community-based organization, faith-based institution, federally recognized tribal nation, institution of higher education like a college, university, public library, city or municipality, or intermediate school district in order to apply for this grant funding. You must fall under one of those categories as an organization. Now, if you are not one of the following organizations, that does not mean that you need to log off, right? There's still hope, okay? If you are not one of those organizations, you can begin thinking about what partnership opportunities exist between you and an organization that has standing as one of these types of organizations in order to apply. It just means that they will have to be the fiduciary or lead organization on this grant opportunity, right? So you cannot receive the funding as the grantee if you do not fall into one of these buckets, but if you have an existing partnership with someone that is willing to be your fiduciary to receive the funding and be accountable to the accounting processes associated with this funding, then you are still in the green to move forward with working through this application. So that's the first gate. The next gate is that you must also be either a licensed childcare or camp organization, or two, have an active licensing application in process, or three, meet a childcare licensing exemption, right? So you must be one of those three: already settled, having a childcare license or camp organization license in the process, or meeting an exemption. If you're not sure currently, feel free to continue to apply anyway, right? So we don't want the lack of sureness about where you fall to stop you from applying, particularly your intent to apply, right? Because that has a hard deadline. You want to make sure that you make it through that gate. It's better to go ahead and submit the intent, excuse me, and then realize maybe that you do not meet some of these parameters and start to work through that in the application process, than to not submit an intent to apply at all. And then you don't have the opportunity to continue to move forward in the process or to miss the deadline altogether. So MASP can help you whether you can help you plan whether you currently understand and meet through all of these requirements or not. Any
Oh,
thoughts,
oh,
questions? Sorry. Any thoughts, comments, questions so far?
all right.
Okay.
We'll keep going and you'll write them down, put them in the chat. We'll get to all of these. There are lots of checkpoints throughout this presentation.
Oh, Stephanie, we do have a question in the chat.
Oh,
Someone asked, what do you mean by camp organization? So there is a separate license for camp organizations from childcare licensing. And so you would just go to MyLeap's website and you can find the distinctions between those camp organizations, camp licensure policies and processes, and childcare licensing policies and processes. I can find that link for you now too. Go ahead, Stephanie.
all right. So let's talk about the process. The first thing that you have to do, according to MyLeap, is fill out a very brief intent to apply form. You will need, in order to fill this out, because nothing the state does is ever easy, you have to create a new My Login for Business account. There are instructions to make that happen online. It takes a little bit, mostly just your email, and then you can submit. Um, uh, do you, Kayla, there's a question in the chat about this. I'm going to go through the slide and then we can add that. So you complete the intent to apply, and then you need to start building your grant. The RFP is online. You can download that, and then you can go ahead and start writing your answers to all of the questions that are asked in the RFP. And then when you're done with that, you'll need to upload all of your answers into the Grant Electronic Monitoring System, or GEMS. GEMS is a statewide software, and it's pretty straightforward in terms of how it operates. The one thing that you'll need to be aware of is that some of the stuff that you may copy and paste from whatever program you're writing in doesn't carry forward. It doesn't do a good job with special characters. can sometimes not do a good job with extra formatting. So you'll need to look everything over in GEMS, and then you will go ahead and submit your form. There are some extra uploads that you will need to put in there, including a self-assessment, your budget, a spreadsheet, some verification forms, and then you will upload all of that, double check to make sure it's there, and then you will submit. And then that deadline is noon on September 23rd. I'm going to advise you right now to make your mental deadline Tuesday, the 22nd, because if you wait until the very last minute, a couple of things might happen. GEMS gets really busy at the last minute, and sometimes things can operate more slowly than you're anticipating. There will be technical assistance that's available to you if you submit early, but that technical assistance ends at 11 o'clock on the 23rd. So if you get to that last hour and you're having trouble, you're on your own. So I would not wait. And I have also worked with enough of these systems with the state of Michigan that there are times where GEMS can go down, or whatever software you're using can go down. So don't wait until the last minute. Make sure that you are going very quickly, and that you finish your work early to give yourself the best chance for success. Here is how scoring is going to work. After your application is submitted, it will be assigned to a panel of 3 to 4 trained peer reviewers. They don't know you, they don't know your program, they may not even really know your community. But what they do have is a fixed rubric, and that rubric is provided in the RFP. Your scores will be measured against that rubric. There are possible about 95 points that you can earn. And then you will have your scores averaged. And then after those scores are averaged, they will add priority points. So we'll go through these in a little bit, but the priority points are points for different factors that are pretty objective. They're not anything you're really going to write to. They are yes or no answers, and you're going to get those added to your reviewer score. And then they will put your application into a grant tier. The tiers operate like a small tier would be 1 to 5 sites, 6 to 14 sites, or 15 plus sites. And then once you're in your tier, they're going to take your score and they're going to just purely rank it high to low. And then they will start giving out money from that top-down structure until the cash runs out. So where you rank is actually everything. So you want to give yourself the strongest chance possible, by being clear, by being concise, and by making sure that the peer reviewers who are looking over your grant actually are finding it easy to find the things that they're looking for as they measure it against the rubric. You don't want them hunting for information. They're not going to go online. They're not going to Google you. They're not going to do anything. So you need to be as clear and concise as possible in your application itself, so that they're able to find the information easily and give you the best score possible. So now that we've talked about some of those basics, are there any questions before we move forward with the rest of the presentation? Okay, if you think of something, feel free to go ahead. Oh, what was scores average? So they will take your application, and they will look at your all of your scores, and they will measure it against the rubric. So in a second, we'll go through the rubric, and there are 0, 1, 2, or 3 points possible. And they will take all of those scores and that you get for each individual answer, they will add them up. And then they will add your priority points to them. And so you will have a grand total at the end of how many points you earned. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. Good. I'm glad. Um, all right. Keep those questions coming. Kayla and I are co-presenting, so she'll be watching the chat when I'm talking. I'll be watching this chat when she's talking, and we will make sure to get all your questions answered with links if we can find them quickly for you. So let's go on to this rubric. As I mentioned, there are four categories of points possible. 0 points means you didn't get there, you didn't answer anything that was in that question. As an example, 1 point might say that you described your support in two areas. 2 points get you four areas. 3 points is six or more areas. It's an example of how these categories spread out. You are going to want to write to that 3 point box every single time. The application rubric will tell you exactly what you need to include, and this is a great opportunity for you to check your own work. So let's say that you are writing, you think you've hit the 3 point box on every single answer. Give it to someone else on your team, give it to a family member who doesn't know anything about what you do, give them the rubric and your application and see how they think you did. Um, give it to as many people as possible. The more reviews you have before it actually is submitted, the greater your likelihood is that you've answered in the way that you think you've answered. There are some trick words in the 3 point rubrics, words that I would not tricks, but they're flags that you want to make sure you've hit. They're things like it doesn't or describe this or that. It's this and that. Hands-on, that's a big word that is used, including, detailed, and thresholds like six or more. These are the grading keys that the rubric is going to focus on. So, what I have done when I've written grants like this is I will literally copy the 3 point column into a checklist and then make sure that I've hit every single one of those. Your narrative needs to clearly answer each element in the same order if possible, so a reviewer knows exactly where to find what they're looking for. You want it to be as easy as possible for them to tick every single box. So if you miss that and factor in the answer, uh, you will be dropped from a 3 down to a 2. So don't let that happen to you. Be clear and make sure that you are triple and quadruple checking your response. And I can't say this enough. Don't make a reviewer look for your answers. Make it obvious, make it clear so that they have as easy a job as possible. The easier you make their lives, the better they will make yours. So let's really keep an eye on that rubric and pay close attention to it. Um, Also, you will want to write to where the points are. So this little bar chart gives you an idea of where the most points live. Interestingly, the priority factors offer the most points. That's also the area where you have the least amount of influence and control when it comes to your own writing. So where you actually have the ability to write and score the highest in your written responses is in your program description. There are 24 points there, followed by 15 points for need and experience and personnel. And then there are some smaller sections that also are short, low point values, but you don't want to sacrifice those points. So, those are kind of easy ones to get, and you want to make sure you have them. But where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time is going to be describing your program, the community need, and the personnel who are going to be carrying it out. So that's 54 total points out of your 95. So that's where you should be spending your time with doing the deepest and the most specific writing possible. Does anybody have questions about those two slides, the rubric or the questions? Okay, if you think of anything, drop it in the chat. I'll be monitoring. Oh, do I have the full 3 point list? It is in the RFP. The entire rubric is listed in there, so you'll be able to see how each section breaks out and what you need to do to get the full 3 points for each one. Okay, awesome. Keep those questions coming as you have them.
All right, now getting into section C. This is now the section of our presentation where we will really break down section by section what they are requesting, what information they're hoping for, and how you can get the biggest bang for your buck in points. So section C is worth 15 points across 5 rubric rows. Full points across all rows will require both halves of each row. So for example, in row 1, they are requesting existing providers and gaps and barriers. So think of this as like your needs assessment of your community, this section. This is really your opportunity to prove yourself as an expert in your community. Prove that you are well in the know about what your community needs are, that you are well read, that you are well researched, that your experience supports your expertise. So again, in row 1, we're talking about existing programs, gaps and barriers. This is an opportunity where I like to say, this is your Coke versus Pepsi speech, right? So Coke versus Pepsi fans will know, if you asked me personally, I would say they taste the same, right? But my papa, who has been a Pepsi drinker for as long as I've been alive and probably much, much longer, would be deeply offended if you handed him a Coca-Cola. He would be very frustrated, very bothered. He may throw something at you because he's a little grumpy in his old age, okay? And
Radia.
Radia, Papa, he's with him, okay? And so you want to take this opportunity to show grant reviewers, this is what makes me distinct. This is how I can show you that I am Pepsi and not Coca-Cola, right? Based on my understanding in our community. Row 2 is looking at students with access versus those with no or limited access, right? This is information that you may be able to find in local data reports from school districts or philanthropic organizations often are releasing ongoing data reports, community foundations, et cetera, et cetera. Looking at how many students you serve now, right? So what is your current capacity to serve? Row 3 is looking at your experience, which includes program data, years that you've been serving, recognitions, current services. This is your opportunity to tote how excellent your organization does its work, right? This is not an opportunity to be shy, right? You want to really make your case and tell your story, right? We've been operating for 13 years. We have been recognized by national accreditations. We have received these credentials. Our executive director has worked or been trained in these ways, right? This is really an opportunity to give them a high level overview of how great your organization and your work is, right? Then section 4 is looking at current funding and how these funds will add staff, students, days, hours, and enrichment. It's important to note here the purpose of 32 in funds, right? The purpose of these funds is to expand access. And so when you're talking about why you need these funds, you want to be able to hone in distinctly on what difference this is going to make for the access to out of school time opportunities within your community, right? So with these funds, we will be able to serve 30 more youth or 10 more youth. We will be able to add 5 people to our staff, which means that we will be able to increase program hours or program days by this much. We will be able to add 10 more vendors who will be able to then offer enrichment across these various subjects, right? So you want to speak very clearly to what current funding you have, which sets a case right for your credibility and who's already supporting. Like funders like to fund people who other people fund. It's like this great fun cyclical thing, right? But also you want to be very thoughtful of what exactly this funding is going to do for you and your organization. Then, lastly, of course, how you meet childcare camp licensing or most standards if you are exempt, right? So, ensuring that you have clarity about what camp licensing or childcare licensing requires, right? And so making sure you're familiar with most standards, aka the Michigan out of school time standards. If you're not familiar, that is also a resource that you can find on our website at michiganafterschool.org as well as MyLeap's website. But you want to be able to speak distinctly and directly to the standards and that these things require in your application. All right. So make sure that you are familiar with those supporting documents and resources as well. Anytime there is a reference to a resource or a document in an RFP, you want to make sure that you're familiar with it, right? And you want to make sure that you're using the language directly that the RFP gives you. Okay. So, a few ways to make it winning. Number one, use numbers, not adjectives, when possible. So, saying 62% of our participants are eligible for free or reduced meals, or the nearest program is 14 miles away, beats we are a high need community, right? Or saying that we are low income is not as great as being able to say that 80% of our participants live below the poverty line, right? So being able to speak very directly to what measurements you are qualifying these adjectives with, right? Understanding that this is a storytelling opportunity, right? And so when you are making a case and telling your story, you want to make sure that you are supplementing some of the qualitative, like fun and frilly language that we love with hard facts, right? That can support what you're saying, okay? Next, you want to tie your need to your plan. So you are using this opportunity and community need and experience to show the gap, but then show how these funds close it. Make sure that you are not honing so deeply into all of the statistics about the gap that you forget to address and draw the parallel with, okay, and because of these funds, this is how we'll fill it, right? So make sure that all of the great information that you're finding, you're also meeting with a solution, right, in your grant application. So I've made the case for all of the need that we have. Here's what our organization is planning to do. Here's the impact we're going to make because of our mission and our vision clarity that we have. And then lastly, show a track record. So as much as you can show improve attendance, outcomes, years running, partnerships, and recognitions, right? Again, this is an opportunity to really strut your stuff, okay? Don't miss out on an opportunity. This includes, community recognitions, right? If you've been recognized locally, even if it's not, there's no recognition that is too small or too big to be in this application, right? So really being thoughtful of even, a creative way that I've heard folks approaching this is the ways in which their parents in their youth recognize them, right? So you may not be someone that has received a recognition from the city or from the county or from the state just yet, but if you are receiving ongoing recognitions from your parents, from your youth, just any opportunity again to just make a case for the credibility of your organization, you want to take it.
Oh, sorry. Are we?
Nope, this is it.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so now getting into proposed programming. This is a big wham whammy, okay? We are looking at 24 points in section D, the largest across 8 rows, 3 points each. So what we're breaking down here are the 3 point targets row by row, okay? So in row number 1, 3 points, you get 3 points for recognizing 6+ enrichment areas within your program. That means 6 or more. Count them off. This is a great opportunity to go through the list and count one by one. Have I named 6 or more? This is another opportunity where you do not want to paraphrase. You do not want to make assumptions about what your reviewers will assume. Like, for example, um, I said, um, mentoring. And I think mentoring goes hand in hand with youth voice. So I don't feel the need to say both. No, you want to say both, and you want to recognize separately because they are listed separately how you are addressing these enrichment areas. So Six plus, count them off. Turn to your neighbor, say six, six. Okay. Six enrichment areas in that column. Okay. Number two, hands-on core academics, right? So we're looking at math, reading, and science and how the activities associated with these core competency areas will recapture or accelerate learning for your participants, right? Notice they say hands on. This is another ding, 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 ding. You want to use that same language in your application, right? So, looking at how your program offers hands on with examples, if possible, right? Hands on means that youth are engaging in robotics classes that where they are able to talk about, these core competencies in STEM, right? And this is how it supports them to be able to recapture learning loss over the summer, right? You want to be very formulaic in the way that you're answering and ensuring that you are touching on every point. So, having hands on activities in all three core academic areas and then making a case for how the way in which you are doing those activities support youth to recapture or accelerate their learning during the time that they're engaged with you. Area three, recruitment, three plus strategies. Count them off. Okay. This is another area. When anytime they give you a number, this is an opportunity where you should be like reminding yourself, okay, let me make sure there are three plus. You want to name the strategies and describe collaborative recruitment, right? So this is a really great opportunity for you to also tote your partnerships that you have currently in community. For example, I have a partnership, you can say, I have a partnership with an intermediate school district. Just saying that is not enough, right? Also, what does that mean? What does that do for you? Through our partnership with the intermediate school district, we are able to connect with teachers who then connect us with youth who support us to develop ongoing programming opportunities to ensure that youth are recruited from diverse backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So you want to provide the greatest amount of detail possible with your recruitment strategies that support a case that we absolutely are prepared and equipped to meet the numbers that we're applying for. Now, when we're talking about recruitment, this also means that you want to make sure you're selecting a number that is realistic for your organization. And a fun fact, a tip that I usually give, I'll give it for free today, is that not only do you want to make sure that the number you're putting on your application is attainable, sometimes you might just want to put a number that's a little bit less than what you know to be attainable, right? So that you're going above and beyond in the eyes of your funder, right? And so if what's attainable is you can get um 20 scholars on site every single day. I know we'll be able to have 20. You might want to put 15 in your application. Now, that may mean that you receive less funding, depending block by block where you're falling on that margin. But sometimes it might be better to receive less funding and be confident that you can meet the metrics than to try to overshoot to receive more funding and then struggle to meet the metrics. And now funders are looking at your program and wondering why you're not meeting the numbers that you told them that you would, right? So you just want to be thoughtful of that. And that also feeds into your recruitment and strategies. So making sure that you're naming them outright, making sure you're meeting those numbers. Number four, attendance plan. Making sure you have a clear plan documented for how you will monitor attendance and use data to improve it and retain students, right? So making sure you are acknowledging all three parts of that question, excuse me, all three parts of that component, right? So how you will have an ongoing tracking system, brownie points if this tracking system is automated and or streamlined and or has a clear system, right, attached to it, that people are well trained on, like being able to speak to those things. Also, though, not just that you're collecting data, right, but how are you actually using that data to innovate and adjust your program? on an ongoing basis. And then retaining students, understanding that students vote with their feet, right? So, how will you also ensure on an ongoing basis that the amount of students that you worked so hard to recruit in that last section will continue to come back on an ongoing basis? Number five, we're looking at making sure these activities are tied to research or quality practices. This is another great opportunity for you to do your own research, right? And or lean into the research you may already, or the insight that you may already be aware of. This looks like, referencing Bloom's taxonomy, right? We are thoughtful of higher order thinking questions and how we can integrate them into ongoing practices, leaning into socio-emotional learning, and we understand that socio-emotional learning, practices say this about youth or trauma informed learning, right? We address, creating trauma informed environments by fill in the blank, right? So using this opportunity really to lean into, again, this can even reference most standards, right? That is quality practices. That is a measure of quality practices within your organization, right? So based on the Michigan out of school time standards, it says
Oh,
staffing, quality staffing looks like this, right? Making sure that you are really leaning into those researched quality practices, right? So there are plenty of different resources you can reference there. If you're looking for some, feel free to reach out to us. We can make more available. And then last but certainly not least, days and hour plan. So spelling out the actual operating days and hours for every service, right? Whether that be during the school year, summer programming, what the days, what the hours are going to look like, making sure that you're breaking those things down. Be thoughtful that for this section, you have 15,000 characters or approximately 5 pages, right? So if you've answered all of the questions in 1 page, you might want to rethink the depth of your responses, right? That doesn't mean that you need to use every single character that's available to you. We'll talk a little bit later about making sure that you provide buffers for the gym software, et cetera, et cetera. However, you do want to make sure that you are thoughtful of the character space, what the character space they allowed says about what the depth of answer that they are expecting. Okay. And again, reminding yourself that you need to write enough detail that a stranger who's never heard of you, who's never heard of your program, can picture the day. I see a few questions coming in the chat, and we're right at a parking lot. Are there any attendance software that may assist with multiple sites that you may know? Hmm.
I do
Now,
not know.
go ahead, Stephanie.
No, I was going to say, I don't know of any. Do you?
I recently went to a conference where I found an attendance software and I have their information somewhere nearby. They use Easy Reports. Easy Reports, yes, is an available software that is required for grant reporting. But ongoing attendance outside of Easy Reports, I can look if there are other recommendations. Thanks, folks, in the chat. Regarding attendance to even apply, each site we operate must be hitting 15 participants. Yes, that is the minimum allotment for a site that you have to have at least 15 participants daily. And that is not average, that is daily. So we want to clarify, we're not saying, you might have a 13 student and then a 20 student and then a 10 student, and then you want to have 15 students in person daily. Oh, and thank you folks in the chat for also
Yeah,
proposing some attendance softwares. Y'all are great. This group is so talkative.
I know. I love it. All right. I'm going to keep going. Let's talk about goals. This is kind of unique. There are 9 points possible here, but it's only scored 0 or 3. There is no partial credit here. So there are 3 goals that you need to be setting. The first one is academic outcomes. You need to be talking about how you are going to move the needle on literacy, retention in school, things like that. So you want to set a goal that again is attainable, ambitious, that you think you can achieve, and many of you will already have data in this regard if you're an existing program. The second one is family engagement. This also is required. And so you'll want to talk about some of that, how you're going to be communicating with parents and families and bring them into your program. And again, it needs to be quantifiable, measurable. The third goal is one of your choosing. And again, you can look at different things that are measurable, attendance, attitudes towards school, skill development, retention, positive behaviors, etc. So because there is no partial credit here, your greatest risk in this section is that you are going to forget to include one of your goals. So be sure to include that. And then I forgot to do this today, but you want to make your goals SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, R, and time bound. I always forget R. So Google that when we're done. And Kayla, do you remember what R is?
I'm literally, I don't know why in my mind reasonable is coming to mind, but it's not reasonable. I'm looking it up. Realistic.
Realistic. Thank
Okay,
you, Emily.
reasonable,
You win.
realistic.
You win. Um, So yes, make
Hmm.
sure your goals are SMART and make sure that you're setting them in the yellow box here on this slide. You want to make sure that you have something scoreable and link each goal to a research or quality practice relevant. Okay, now we have a Caitlin is weighing in the chat. So we'll all have to Google. But yes, I think that this is an area that, again, just make sure you've touched on three goals, that they are SMART, and that you haven't forgotten to include one because you don't want to inadvertently give up 3 points by only including two goals. This section is about 8,000 characters, should take you about 3 pages to do. So be sure to go in and do that. The next section is your quality of personnel. There are three categories of personnel, and you will need to address all of them. This is worth 15 points, so it's a pretty major category. So you need to identify and describe your people at each level. The first one is the grant management team. Who's going to be the point of contact for this grant? Who's going to make sure that the money is being spent in the way that was indicated? Who's going to handle the reporting? Who's going to come to the professional development and technical assistance sections? These people need to be identified specifically and their qualifications included. Site management, who is running the site and overseeing all of the program staff, supervisors, administrators, directors. These are the folks that you're going to talk about. And then direct program staff are the people who are actually interfacing with the young people on site. So all of these people, you need to describe their qualifications and their experience on the job. So we're looking for education, background, all of the good resume building experience, program certificates. If they have their MyYDA, this is a great place to highlight that. Professional development and time spent yeah, on the job so that you can include all of that. And then you're going to talk about how the staff skills are going to be connected to the delivery of the services at each program site. So this is a couple of sentences about how their work is going to be completed. The last thing I want to talk about here is that you may have gaps. Most programs do. If you have a capacity gap, go ahead and talk about it and then talk about how you're going to address it. Grant reviewers are pretty sophisticated and they're going to see if there is a gap. If you haven't addressed what you're going to do to take care of it, then you're going to be left with a lower score. So go ahead and identify the gap and then talk about how you're going to fix it. And folks will reward your honesty, especially if it comes with a plan. So this is a pretty good 15-point thing to do. And your plan can include lots of different things that MASP actually offers. We have, quality supports. We have professional development. We have the MyYDA program, and we're not alone. There are lots and lots of, local providers, trainers, folks like that. Go ahead and get online and find what that is going to be. The limit here is 3,500 characters, so that's about a page. Now we'll talk about the easy points. Easy for other people, not for me. I am famous for not doing any budgets. So math is hard. But professional development, again, detailed schedule. This will immediately link to your staffing gaps and your needs. So include a detailed schedule, training topics and dates. You need to connect to licensed child care center standards or the most standards. So this is a great place to talk about where you're strong and where you need growth and make that linkage very clear. And then lastly, you get the most points possible for talking about the National After School Association core knowledge, skills, and competencies. So go ahead and really touch on those as well. So the word that is going to separate a 3-point answer from a 2-point answer is detailed. So again, clarity and incisiveness is going to be important here. Section 8 also requires you to have a self-assessment and a budget. There's a pre-award self-assessment that you need to complete. It's available on the MyLeap website. You'll fill that out and you need to upload it. Don't forget to do this because that would be a problem for you. And then you need to get into GEMS and enter a clear allowable budget. Knowing what's allowable and what isn't is key. And that is something you can find on page 24 of the RFP. Secondly, you need to be mindful of admin supports. There is a generous 10% included here to allow for administration of the grant. I've seen everything as low as 3%. 8% I think is the average, so 10% is actually pretty good. And you're going to use that to cover salaries, material, enrichment, contracts, transportation and food. So that all should be included in your budget. Be honest and transparent about that. And then make sure to upload everything in there so that your reviewers can see it and support it. And then we need to talk about your priority points. These are the things that you don't have a choice about, but are nevertheless very important. The first set of priority points has to do with your community, and that is the need that exists in your community. So if you have free and reduced price lunch numbers that are high, that is going to score better than a more affluent community where the free and reduced price lunch numbers are lower. Free and reduced price lunch is often used as a proxy for poverty in education circles, and that's why they're asking for that. Down below that, they're also asking for your county median income, and that's another way that they're checking on the needs that exist among families within your community. So both of those numbers you can find in the RFP links to where you would find those numbers. So they're easy to get, and you need to just include them. There's not a lot you can do here to wiggle around it. The numbers are what they are, but they are a big factor for you in your priority points. So the next section has to do with your times of service. If you are serving both school year and summer, you will get higher points. That's the maximum number of points. Serving one, if you just serve in the school year, that gets you a lesser number of points. If you just serve in the summer, you won't get any points. So you definitely want to try to aim for that school year if you are there. And school year and summer will be the most. In the chat here, I see the question, if the percent of free and reduced price lunch is higher for the summer than in the school year, how is that counted? I'm not really sure that it would be. You're usually using a community measure or school district measure, so that number is not going to vary based on school year and summer. But if I'm misunderstanding the question, Jess, please feel free to add more in the chat. Um, Returning trackee grantee track record, that is up to 5 points. If you got the 32N grant in the past, and you met all of your reporting deadlines and you showed up for all of the MyLeap PD and you did all of the monitoring things that needed to be done, then you will get maximum points in there. If you struggled a little bit, I would address it to see if you can get partial credit, but that is definitely a returning grantee benefit. So be sure to claim those points if you are able. And then your licensing status. If you are already licensed and you're serving grades 9 through 12, you will get 5 points. If your application is in process, you will get 1 point. If you are exempt and following most K to 8 quality standards, you will also get 1 point. So those are fairly automatic. Please be sure to address those so that you don't miss out on those points. The lever that you control the most of is your school year and summer application window. Everything else is pretty much um, set for you. If you are a new grantee, does that hurt us? It does a little bit. It gives returning grantees that have been effective a slight leg up. It also can hurt returning grantees that have not met all of the standards that they needed to make. If they were slow on doing that, that is an issue. So I will tell you though, Emily, that with $135 million, there are going to be an awful lot of new grantees at the table this year. This is more money by a lot than the state has ever been able to reward before. So don't be afraid of that being a slight penalty because the numbers are just very much going to work in your favor, no matter who you are. Okay, let's pause um, and talk about your questions. What did I do? Oh, any questions?
Jess is bringing more context in the chat. The school year program is 99% attended by students from the school/district. The summer program is attended by students from districts all over the country.
Oh,
There was even a student from New York.
okay.
All over the county. So all over Washtenaw County, students come from to attend the summer program.
Okay.
I apologize for my misread. That's what I get for reading too fast.
Um, I think that, yeah, I would say, yeah, Caitlin is suggesting that OST calculates the percent of free and reduced lunch based on your site, not where students come from. So, I would actually, you know what, Kayla, tell me if you agree with this. I would actually call MyLeap and ask that question. They're the ones who really are setting these numbers and who know this. And so I would actually frame it for them and ask them how they would like you to set this up, just to be absolutely crystal clear. Because I'm not sure this is a question that I could answer. I don't know, Kayla, if you are able. Yeah, this is my leap one. If okay, any other questions before we keep moving? Again, feel free to use that chat. Any discussion items that you're worried about? All right, Kayla, are you ready to keep going?
Yeah. Some mistakes to avoid, things to be thoughtful of. One, as we've mentioned a few times, vague or general answers like we help kids succeed, reviewers can't score what they can't picture. So again, just being very thoughtful of how you can be the most descriptive, how you can provide the best picture, how you can be the most detailed in your responses. Next, see attached, right? So referencing in text boxes to see attached materials. Anything that is outside the allowed box isn't scored. So make sure that you are putting it in the field, even if you're providing supplemental documentation. I know when I've done this application on the program side, we would attach strategic plans or logic models and evaluation plans, etc. But just remember that those things are supplemental, right? So they're complementary to your application. They cannot be used in proxy for any of the questions. So just wanting to make sure that any context from the attached document that's important to have for a specific question, that you're just putting that information directly into your responses. Next, skipping a box. Every empty field is points forfeited. So making sure that you are filling every field in throughout the entirety of the application. Special characters, just knowing that you can't use special characters, they're prohibited. They can break your entry, make it very hard to submit as you're going back through the process. Particularly our special friend, the M dash, which is often very closely aligned with using like AI, chatbots, etc. The M dash is very common in those responses. And to that point, generally speaking, just being very thoughtful of how you're using AI platforms in draft and as editing resources and tools. Just making sure that your eyes are touching all of the documents, or it's the eyes of someone who you trust are touching the responses before you submit, right? So making sure that you are offering time for very thorough reading, rereading, is particularly when you are using those platforms, particularly because those platforms also just tend to answer in very formulaic ways that generalize. Oh my gosh, my tongue is twisting today. That generalize, and you want to make sure that the information that you're making available is as specific to your program as possible, right? So ensuring that you're being very thoughtful of the language that you're using when you're also receiving some support from AI platforms. Ignoring the 3-point column is a mistake to avoid. So make sure that you are remembering that answering the prompt is not the same as hitting every graded element. So when you're going through and answering your questions and rereading through them before you submit, make sure that you're doing that side by side with your rubric. Also, formatting that vanishes. So if you are using a third party platform like Google Docs or Microsoft Word, et cetera, which we do recommend because it does make it a little bit easier when you are in draft form to make sure that everything is saved, to get everything into a central place. Gems can be sometimes finicky and hard to work through, particularly as you're drafting. So if you are using a third party platform to chart out your answers before you submit them, just remember that GEMS in the end will convert it to plain text. So a lot of charts and styling are lost if you're using a lot of bullet points or numerical categorical answers. A lot of those things will be lost in translation. So you want to make sure that you are reading through those things or like looking through them again once you have copied them into the platform to make sure that they are still reading clearly. Next, trusting the character count. And this gets into leaving some margin for error in your character count. So also this, when you are using a third party platform, there are times when, the Google Docs will say that this is exactly 15,000 characters, but then you copy it into the GEMS platform and you lose 2 sentences that were your closing, that were important to your response, right? And so you just want to make sure that you're offering yourself some buffer of 100 or a few hundred characters just to ensure that every single time you're copying information over, it is pasting accurately, right? This also lastly goes into skipping the proofread. So if you draft in a doc, proofread, then paste, Also, sometimes you might lose a paragraph. You might lose the first letter of the beginning, right, when you're copying and pasting. Make sure that you are reading thoroughly through that draft. Make sure that you are removing grammatical errors, things like that, in draft, but also that you are ensuring that every single part of your initial response from your draft document makes it into the final product in the GEMS platform. All right. And then lastly, just write like your reviewer knows nothing. Your reader is a stranger. They are not familiar, possibly, with your community, with the needs of your community, with your organization, with how well known you may be in your community and how great of work you all may do. They can only score what's on the page. So write clearly so that someone with zero context can picture exactly what's happening in your program, what the children, youth, and adults will be doing, and can find each graded element, I would add with ease, right? So finding each graded element using the language that the graded element gave them in the order that the graded element gave as well, right? So also, even furthermore, if you have the information present and it's in the exact order that the rubric says, then you can ensure that it's just like going through a checkbox for them, right? And then you can, of course, get into the nuance and the thoroughness of your answers. Be specific, numbers, names, examples, not adjectives. Be plain spoken, use everyday language, explain any acronym at least once. Try to reduce jargon or buzzwords as much as possible, unless they are the buzzwords from the rubric. Those are acceptable. Lead with evidence, data, and quality practices behind each claim, behind every program practice that sticks out, especially like key program components, key parts of your curriculum, key parts of the structure that you all follow. Fill the space, use the character limit, detail earns points. So be very thoughtful of that. Be thoughtful, not redundant, though. It's important to note. So make sure that as you are adding greater detail, that it is not repetitive of what you've already said, but that it adds greater context to the entirety of your story or your grant.
Okay. So now we're going to go through the pre-flight checklist. So here's how you'll start. You have your intent to apply filed after you got your My Login for Business. You will get a signed program site verification form for each site. So if you don't own your site, if you are leasing, you need to make sure that the landlord has written a site verification form that indicates you are legally able to use the site and that they are all set to go and that it is safe, etc. You will want to make sure that you have indicated if you are serving both school year and summer if you are able. If not, make sure you've accurately represented when you are serving youth. Your budget is entered and it is allowable. Your admin is at equal to or less than 10%. That all sites are listed on your program site spreadsheet. That's an easy one to forget, so make sure you've got everything listed. You have written and doubled and triple checked with friends and family and coworkers that every box has been answered to its 3-point column in the rubric. You definitely want to make sure that your pre-award self-assessment is uploaded, that you have proofread it in GEMS, that there are no special characters that will break your application or cause it to have difficulty. And again, you want to make sure that you have got this bad boy uploaded and triple checked and submitted, that you've clicked the submit button prior to noon and that you've watched and gotten a confirmation before noon on Wednesday, September 23rd. And again, I cannot say this strongly enough. Do not wait for the last minute. Make sure that you have got time to spare just in the event that anything goes wrong or is problematic. That is just a basic thing. And so a lot of people, you'd be shocked at how many people have tripped up on these things. So do all of them, double, triple check, and then go celebrate. Make sure that you are ready to pop the cork on your champagne or eat that bag of Skittles or go to the spa, whatever it is that gets it done for you. We are so excited for all of you and can't wait to see all of you be successful. So we'll be eating the bag of Skittles on your behalf. Okay, last opportunity questions. Yes, you can find your score from the last grant application. You can ask MyLeap for it. In fact, I would suggest to you that after this review, you just make it a matter of practice to always get your scores and your comments. They make it available, it's public information, so you can definitely know what you need to improve. I'm trying to remember from the last conversation I had with my leap what they said they saw in terms of common mistakes. And I would say it's forgetting information. I heard of one organization that submitted for a large number of sites and they accidentally transposed all of their site information in the Excel doc, and that caused a big problem. So it really is just the fussy details that end up coming back to bite you. So I would, again, as much as possible, encourage you to um, double and triple and quadruple check. Hands-on core academics. Yes, there is a requirement that you are meeting academic standards. So hands-on, there's a difference. So you are not putting a teacher in front of a classroom and going through a math lesson. But what you are doing is you are working with young people either through tutoring or through hands-on activities. Yeah, robotics, coding, you know, uh, lots and lots of an infinite number of ways that you can convey academic content. But what makes OST different is the way that it's done. It's fun, it's hands-on. Kids don't feel like it's a sit and get. It's a way of learning that is done in a way that they often don't know that they're learning. Kayla, do you have any additional insight on that?
I think you've covered the bases.
Okay. All right. Yes, Jess. It's the full budget, allowable expenditures, all of that. Um, all of the expenditures that you upload are should be allowable. Don't upload any expenditures that are not allowable or that will cause a problem. Nature clubs. Depending on the nature of the nature club, yes, I think it does fall in there. If you are conveying science through nature, then yes, that would be an OST program.
Yes, there is a chart that can be found at the beginning of the RFP.
Um,
I think as long as, go ahead, Stephanie.
no, I was going to ask you.
Okay, I think as long as the academic focus is represented in some component of your programming, then you should be good. But just explain with great detail how the academic focus is represented, and again, connecting it to how it will accelerate or recapture learning for your participants. So if weekly homework help nights are how you do that, just making sure that you're directly addressing that the academic focuses are covered there, how they're covered. Um, yeah.
And that will be part of your goals too, because remember, you have to have an academic goal. So whatever you're describing needs to be something that the reviewer can clearly see is going to allow you to meet those academic goals. I'm going to jump to the last slide, um, which is basically,
That's all. We want to say thank you so much to you all for attending and just provide encouragement that we are here on an ongoing basis to support you in this process. And if you have any further questions or want somebody to just walk alongside you and provide technical support, we are here to do that. MyLeap also has some ongoing office hours going, and they are responsive to their emails. And so, just again, thank you all so much. And we just want to encourage you as a final note that if you are not funded in this round, to please stay connected to the network. MASP has resources available for both funded and unfunded organizations. And so we are here to help no matter what and to be a part of this journey in the out of school time field with you. So please stay connected and also always feel free to ask for your feedback and reapply.
um, uh, I'm not going to say your name correctly. La Teresa has a GEMS question. Is that something that you might be able to help with, Kayla, or is that a MyLeap question?
Depends on what the Jim's question is. Here, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay, and I'm going to stop the sharing.
Okay, my question is, I am trying to set up my gyms. I'm a first time grantor, and so I have access to gyms, but I just didn't know what was the right things to choose in the questions that they asked me. Like
Ah, what what
they
what
they
question?
okay, I'm about to pull it up right now. Just make
And I'm sorry
sure.
if I said your name wrong.
No, it's fine. It's okay. So they have the user information pre-populated. Then it says, what type of user are you? I will be considered a other non-school recipient. So it says what type of user. So I have sub-recipient there. Then it says what type of access do you need? And sub-recipient administrator. And then I put in my ending number. But then when I do that, it says it gives me an error in saying that I didn't choose a type of user, and so I
Mhm.
don't know what I'm doing wrong.
So I would say for this one, you should reach out to the MyLeap. I can send you the email where you can contact them and let them know the error that you're receiving for the platform. And then if you want, you can CC my email on there so I can just make sure that it stays uplifted just in case it gets overlooked.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll drop the link, the email in the chat. Any other questions for Oops, I'm sorry. Any other questions for folks that are still present? Questions, comments, insights?
Thank you. This has been very helpful.
Problem. All right, hearing none. Folks are free to go. Thank you so much for hopping on with us today. Thank you. Any other questions? Emily, Jacqueline, Suma, Famika, Dr. Sierra, Samsung. Thank you so much.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. This was much better than yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
Much more talking.
Yes, they were much more engaged than they were yesterday.
That makes it so much. Oh, the recording is still going.
Oh,
You have to stop it.
okay.
Goodness.
Come on. Stop.